So this is the second opinion. Now you may be thinking to yourself, but Brother Ali, we know that Jesus, the son of Mary, peace be upon him, he too is given the nickname Al-Masih, the one who wipes, or the one who is wiped. So what is the similarity between them? This will be something which we discuss next week when we speak about the appearance of Jesus, the son of Mary. So we know Al-Masih. What about Ad-Dajjal? This is the name which he is most famous for. Ad-Dajjal, we have to go back to the Arabic language. By the way, forgive me for this somewhat technical beginning, but wallahi it is needed. Like I said, we want to know everything about him. We don't want to be left in the dark regarding even his names. Ad-Dajjal, if we go back to the Arabic dictionary called Lisan al-Arab, which is one of 20 volumes, this one, by a man called Ibn Manzur, a very famous Arabic linguist. He says, Ad-Dajjal, shiddatu talyi al-jarbi bil-qatiran. He says the Arabs, in their day-to-day speech, they use the word Dajjal, when they cover the body of their camel with tar. It could be that the skin of this camel becomes infected with a disease. So in order to cover, put 10 underlines under this word cover. So in order to cover Dajjal, the disease, they put tar over it. And likewise, whenever the Arabs want to, he says, whenever they want to cover their swords with gold, they want to plate it with gold, they say, Dajjaltu sayf. I have Dajjaltu my sword. I have covered my sword with gold. So the Dajjal, it comes from the root word cover. Because the Dajjal, he himself is a person who covers. His whole ordeal is an ordeal of covering. He covers truth with falsehood and falsehood with truth. He's a liar. He's an imposter. He's not genuine. Do you see why he's called the coverer, Ad-Dajjal? Because he's a liar. So we have Al-Masih, which we understand, and we have Ad-Dajjal, which we also understand. My beloved, know that the Dajjal is the greatest test to ever set foot on earth. Ibn Majah narrates in his Sunan on the authority of Abi Umama that the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, listen carefully to this narration. He says, إنه لم تكن فتنة في الأرض منذ ذرأ الله ذرية آدم أعظم من فتنة الدجال. There, from the day, he says, from the day that Allah created the first man, Adam, and his progeny, until the end of time, there is not a test which is more severe than the appearance of the Dajjal. And then he continues. And he says, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَبْعَثْ نَبِيًّا إِلَّا أَنذَرَهُ قَوْمَهُ. And Allah has not sent a messenger except that the messenger warned his people of him. And then listen carefully to this touching bit of advice which he's going to give you. He says, وَأَنَا آخِرُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ وَأَنْتُمْ آخِرُ الْأُمَمِ وَهُوَ خَارِجٌ فِيكُمْ لَا مَحَالَةً فَإِنْ يَخْرُجْ وَأَنَا بَيْنَ ظَهْرَانَيْكُمْ فأنا حجيج لكل مسلم وإن يخرج من بعدي فكل مسلم حجيج لنفسه والله خليفتي على كل مسلم. He says, and I would like to tell you that I am the last of the prophets. And you, O Muslims, are the last of nations. And therefore the Dajjal is going to appear in your nation without any change. This must happen. And then he says, therefore, if he appears during my time when I'm still here, I will be the one who will take care of him for you on behalf of every Muslim. But if he appears after my death, then every Muslim will need to protect himself. And I leave Allah as my successor and protector over every Muslim. You feel the severity of this aspect. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is saying, if he comes out in my time, then there's no need for this lecture. And there's no need for us to be afraid or worried and discussing this issue. There isn't any need for it because I will take care of him. He's not going to get past me. And what gives our messenger so much confidence, peace be upon him, because we need to know, my beloved, that every test, whether it is the Dajjal or any other allurement or temptation of the world, it is to be fought using two tools: ilm and iman. Iman, faith. Faith in Allah, faith in your deen. And the second is knowledge. These are the two tools to combat any test. And there wasn't any human being who was given a more generous portion of these two blessings than Muhammad, peace be upon him. So he's saying, if he makes an appearance during my time, don't panic. I have him under control. He's not going to get past me. But he says, if he appears after me, and this is our situation, because he didn't appear during the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him. And therefore he's going to appear in this day and age or in the one after us. Allah knows best, and therefore every one of us needs to be a protector for himself and for his family. For the seriousness of this matter, our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was very, very adamant in giving us a very comprehensive description of what this man looks like and details of his trials which he shall come with, so that nobody falls for him when he appears, so that nobody becomes deceived that this individual is Allah. And this will happen. This will happen. So he gives you a very, very picture perfect, accurate description of this man, as if you can see him with your own two eyes. And as we give these descriptions, I want you to build a mental image of this individual, so that you walk out as if you can see him. Listen to the description. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he says, and this has taken us into our second heading for today, a precise description of the Dajjal, his appearance, his trials, from the words of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Abdullah ibn Umar, this famous companion, he says, and this narration can be found in Bukhari and Muslim, he says, the Prophet once, peace be upon him, ascended the pulpit like this, and he had gathered the Muslims, and he praised Allah, and then he said, Inni unzirukumuh, I warn you of the Dajjal. Inni unzirukumuh, I warn you of the Dajjal. وَمَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا أَنذَرَهُ قَوْمَهُ. And there wasn't any prophet except that he did what I'm doing now. He warned his people. أَنذَرَهُ نُوحٌ قَوْمَهُ. Even the Prophet of Allah, Noah, he warned his people of the Dajjal. Listen carefully to this bit of description which only you know now. He says, وَلَكِنِّي سأقول لكم فيه قولا لم يقله نبي لقومه. However, I am going to give you some information which no messenger has ever told his people about the Dajjal. تعلمون أنه أعور تعلمون أنه أعور وأن الله ليس بأعور. Know that he is one-eyed and Allah is not one-eyed. Know that the Dajjal has a defect in his eyes and Allah is free from all defects. Can you imagine that it's so serious that the Prophet, peace be upon him, has to remind us, remember your Lord is not one-eyed? It is that serious. In another narration in Sahih al-Bukhari on the authority of Ibn Umar, the Prophet gives, peace be upon him, an even more explicit description of his eyes. And he says, Al-Masih al-Dajjal أعور العين اليمنى كأن عينه عنبة طافية. The Dajjal has a defect in his right eye. I want you to build the picture in your head, please. The Dajjal has a defect in his right eye. His eye looks as if it is a floating grape. Very ugly. His eye, it looks like it is a floating grape. It is bulging. Look at the mercy of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He doesn't want to leave you unaware or in the dark, so that when he appears, you're like, maybe is it him? He wants to give you his upstairs to his downs, everything. His eye, it looks like a floating grape. What about his other eye? In Sahih Muslim, the Prophet said, مَمْسُوحُ الْعَيْنِ عَلَيْهَا ظَفَرَةٌ غَلِيظَةٌ. In his other eye, it is wiped. Remember what we discussed in the beginning? His other eye is wiped, and he has on it a very thick fold of skin covering it. There you have it. A man full of defects. So in one of his eyes is defective, and the other eye is dysfunctional and defective. One he is blinding, and the other he can barely see with. This is the Dajjal. Now, let me give you another description, and this one really we can say is his trademark. And every Muslim, I think, knows him by this one. The Prophet, he says, peace be upon him, in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Hudayfa, he says, مَكْتُوبٌ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ كَافِرٌ. It is written on the forehead of the Dajjal. There's writing. There's writing on his forehead, and it says, Kafir, disbeliever. He will first come and claim to be a believer, and then a prophet, and then finally he will claim to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is disgracing him from the very first day, saying, Kafir, on your forehead. Now, there may be some brothers and sisters who hear this and they feel a little bit worried. Maybe they are thinking, brother, I can't read Arabic. I can't read Arabic. And maybe some are asking, I don't know how to read. I'm actually illiterate. Some of us are like this, of course. So what am I going to do? I mean, is this a sign which I'm going to miss out on? I might get confused. I can't read Arabic. What do? I say, brother, don't worry. And sister, don't worry. Because if you are a person, and we will give the evidence for this, if you are a person of Iman, a person of faith in Allah, and a person who tries to translate this theory into action to the best of your ability in your everyday life, then you will be able to read it, even if it is in a language you do not understand, or whether you can read or write anyway. Where is your evidence for this? You said you're only talking from evidence. In the same narration. In Sahih Muslim, in the same narration. Listen carefully again. مَكْتُوبٌ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ كَافِرٌ. It is written on his forehead, disbeliever. Listen. يَقْرَأُهُ كُلُّ مُؤْمِنٍ يَقْرَأُهُ كُلُّ مُؤْمِنٍ كَاتِبٍ وَغَيْرِ كَاتِبٍ. Every believer will be able to read it, whether he is literate or illiterate. Every believer, not Muslim. Every believer, literate or illiterate. Now, you need to notice something here, my brothers and sisters. And I need to first. It is a believer, a mu'min, not anybody else. As for the ones who don't believe in Allah, and as for ones who hid disbelief in their hearts as they showed Islam on the outside, they will not be able to read it. The ones who were given Islam but did not benefit from the teachings of their deen, they will not be able to read it. Don't say, brother, I have 20/20 vision. And my gosh, I can see Mars from here. And I've had laser eye surgery. My eyes are, picture perfect. No, my brother, because on that day, it's not your basar, not your sight that will help you see this word on his forehead. It is your basira, your insight, that will give you the ability to read that word on his forehead. And that basira, that insight, is a product of Iman. It is a product of Iman. We can eat all the carrots we want, and we can have carotene floating out of our fingernails. But without Iman, I ask Allah to give us all Iman, this word will remain invisible. And your brother will be like, look, this is the Dajjal. How do you know? It says on his forehead, Kafir. You say, brother, I can't see it. What do you mean you can't see it? Look, it says Kafir. No, I can't see it. It's a discrepancy, a difference in Iman. And another aspect, this is to be taken literally, by the way. This is haqiqi, not majazi. This is haqiqi, literal, not metaphorical, symbolic. There are people, by the way, who overinterpret these signs. And they say, the kafir on his forehead is symbolic to something else. This is literal. This is real. And it is so real that in another narration in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, tahajjaha, he spelt it out. وَقَالَ كَافَ رَا. It is spelt kaf, fa, ra. He spelled out the words to emphasize that it is real. So I ask Allah Ta'ala to give us Iman. And another point of reflection. And I want you to memorize this sentence from me if you can. That is, whenever Allah wants to show you His perfection, the Creator, He sometimes does this by showing you the deficiencies in the creation. Allah continues to show you His perfection by showing you the deficiencies in the creation.